Welcome to The Watching Dead, the officially unofficial podcast for all The Walking Dead. I'm Jim.
I'm A.Ron.
And we put the Dare and Daryl Dixon. Today we're talking season 1, episode 3. Paris, Sera, Toujours, Paris. That's how I'm saying that. It essentially means Paris will always be Paris. If Google is to be trusted, if their translate can be trusted. A.Ron, what'd you think of this episode?
There's a lot. There is some kind of like toning and tonal and story issues, and that like they are trying to tell, I think, a pretty serious, sober, prestige format kind of drama around Daryl Dixon's experiments in France. But then they also have a full blown zombie orchestra and zombies with acid blood. And, like it's like, we've always said that like The Walking Dead is kind of torn apart in two directions. One, it wants to be like the vision that Frank Darabont kind of pitched to AMC, this like really prestige-y take on this black and white art house graphic novel series of zombie things, and wanting to be Z Nation, where it's like, that's not super interesting for longer than a couple of years. We need to have some gonzo shit in it. I feel like this is an episode that really felt particularly torn apart, where there's like some really good, like I kept on seeing some of like Norman Reedus's nonverbal acting, like his discomfort and his like distaste and his unease in certain situations, especially when he feels like helpless, that he's just like, people are like a scene where people are bargaining for him in another language, and he's just like I thought that stuff was really good. And the stuff he's doing with Isabel is really good, and then you've got the rest of the stuff. So, but like I said, I like Daryl Dixon. I think Norman Reedus is a star, and I guess the zombie orchestra was pretty fucking badass, all told. For what Daryl calls a ridiculous detour, which I think that's literally what it is. It's just something that they're like, hey, look, isn't this a cool thing? We're not going to comment on it or nothing. It's just going to be the cold open. What did you think of this little mishmash, clay and iron type episode?
Well, I want nothing to do with the sober introspective The Walking Dead. Daryl Dixon needs to be, it needs to be zombie orchestras. It needs to be just full on insanity, like the nightclub. That's what I want The Walking Dead to be now. Just be that underground catacombs nightclub, and I'm happy. So I don't know that. I hope they lean more into that, because I thought the zombie orchestra was one of the most over-the-top, ridiculously cool things I've seen The Walking Dead do. It's just so fucked up, right?
The horn section.
Dude, the wind instruments were definitely my favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that stuff. I don't know about the rest of it. The rest of it is fine, whatever. The Walking Dead's never going to hit the highs of other shows that do this other stuff better. So why try? Why bother? Let's just make this fun.
Well, I feel like with some of these miniseries, they have they made some good X-Men, then they made a lot of bad X-Men, and then they made Logan, which was like a departure, and just like, oh my God, this is like almost like a Clint Eastwood type Western, in its feel and its grandiosity and its themes and things like that. I don't know why you can't like just decide we're going to course correct on a brand new continent. We're going to be visiting a city of light, and like like a city that just epitomizes across the globe worldliness and culture. And we're going to do something different with it. And I think they are doing that, but they also feel like they have to also, like, if there's an episode that doesn't have a zombie shambling up and grabbing somebody, it's a failure. And it's like, because we have it's funny because there's a lot of feedback. Like 6 different people came up to ask us, like, you mentioned it in the preview, but like, why aren't you harping on the similarities between this and The Last of Us? And like, when they said that, it just realized that I had never even considered this in terms of The Last of Us, because they're like, The Last of Us is a project that is confident enough to go an episode, maybe 2, maybe 3, without so much as seeing a zombie. But man, when you see him, it's fucking impactful. And all the stuff in between, with the people and the characters is all so fascinating. And like, so it's like, Yeah, I guess this is a very similar structure, but like I do not think of Joel and Ellie when I think of Daryl and Laurent. And to
No.
me, like the big difference is Isabel. You know, Joel didn't have that adult person to kind of like share the load and someone that like the kid trusts. So like they were forced to kind of like build that bond, and I don't feel that happening. Like if anything, Laurent's got a little bit of hero worship with Daryl, and Daryl just is like, just at this point 3 episodes in, wants to be shot at the situation. So like yeah, like that's the thing, is like this show doesn't have that confidence. This show does have to force an action set piece every week, or it feels like it's not doing what it's doing, and that's sad. I wish they did have opportunities for like these mini series to just, you know, like either swing for the fences in one direction. Like Daryl would have been a fun subject to crank it up to 11 and go full world, Z Nation. But also he's a good enough actor, and this is like, enough talent and scenery that they could have done serious. So it's just still The Walking Dead.
Yeah. It's I think this is what The Walking Dead will always be. I don't know. I don't really.
Do you think the writer's room is a lot like the orchestra, where they just have a couple of brainless idiots chained to typewriters and they're just flailing around, and if
they're brainless idiots, it's because they signed on to do The Walking Dead and it turned them into that, right? I'm sure these people had full lives, plenty of intelligence before signing the contract, before becoming undead, and now this is their fate.
Having said that, I would absolutely sign up for the writer's room of Rick and Michonne. I have decades of Walking Dead watching experience, encyclopedic knowledge of the world and lore, and my AP English teacher just really thought well of my work in high school. So like I hear the strike's over, sign me up to the guild. Let's heal this franchise together. I'll be that idiot. I'll be that brainless idiot.
You can do some AI voice acting too. I mean, you got a pretty good angry Rick, and we know Rick's going to be pretty angry.
True. He comes back and sees the States. He finds out Michonne abandoned their children just to find him. He's just not going to even believe it.
Anyway,
they're very minor children.
This episode. Maybe we should get into the recap.
Yeah, let's do it.
We start off with Daryl's group arriving in, I'm going to call it Angers, because that's how it's spelled. Angers, France. Yep. They can radio from there to get their next set of directions. So they go to try and meet their contact in a theater to find a radio. They leave Laurent and Sybil outside. Sybil? Is that her name? Shit, I can never remember her name. She's in each episode for like half a scene. Inside, they meet their contact who takes them to the radio, which works about as well as the radio back at the Abbey. And it turns out he's used some of the parts to create a zombie orchestra. Wow, this is fucked up and hilarious. I love everything about it.
Yeah, the dude, I mean, it the more I watched, the more clever it was. You got the one zombie with the tongue plucking the harp. You get the trumpets shoved down the esophaguses of the horn section. The one zombie who's had its jaw removed and like its clarinet surgically implanted into its mouth.
Yep.
It's just a treat. I did think, because like growing up in the Midwest, you always, you go to these towns and it's like Versailles, right? And Napoleon and all these other things. And I'm always like, God damn, what the fuck? Why were our ancestors so ignorant? And then I see Angers, which is pronounced Angers. And I'm like, okay, I'm a shoeless peasant that slapped a mule's ass from Boston to southern Indiana, and I finally found a clearing that I want to call my own. And I look to the learned people of France for a name, and I see Versailles. Yeah, that's going to be Versailles. I'm sorry. Like, I got a whole new sense of empathy for my poor ancestors, trying to give highfalutin names to their shitty pieces of Midwestern real estate, appropriated from the natives, of course. But
should have just come up with new names. I don't know why we can't create new names over here. Not everything has to be in New York.
Or why isn't it acceptable for Americans to pronounce foreign words with an accent? Like everyone, everyone gets real ass mad if you throw Angers out there. But like,
I don't know how many people live in Angers, but yeah, they probably do.
The people of Angers really angry about it, you know?
Yeah,
but like,
it
what
angers
the fuck?
them, I'd say.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at the words. Look at the words. Look at diacritic marks. What am I we don't have those. Like, we don't have diacritic marks in America. We have contractions where we like get rid of the useless words that we don't pronounce. Like France has got those and they just add more. It's more than I can understand.
Okay, let's talk highbrow for a second.
Yes.
I kind of like this idea of using the dead to keep culture alive, right? He's saying, oh, culture is alive in Paris or whatever. And it's interesting using the tools that he's been given in this world to create the new culture of this new world through the old culture. I don't know. There's something really interesting there that they're doing behind all of this insanity that I liked. I don't know.
No, I agree. They're definitely they got something there. But it's like it's a really funny vignette because like Daryl and Isabel arrive. They find this guy who probably at one point ran an outpost like the Nest and like what we saw in France. And you know, he's the last guy alive, and he kind of gave up hope, started cannibalizing the radio for spare parts, and now look at him. And I got the clear intent that this man's dead. Like he's finally found a soul, and I almost like he knew it too. Like, I finally found someone to appreciate this, and I'm going to put on a concert for an audience, and it's going to kill me.
Yeah.
And there, like I said, there is something really poignant about that, and it is something that like would go into a better show. For sure. Even though it is the wildest, craziest element of the episode.
Yeah, that music he's playing, you know, attracts walkers outside, and Daryl and Isabel leave this crazy old guy as he's still playing with his musical troupe here. Daryl goes outside, shoots the walker, and it attracts a whole bunch of other walkers as they ride away. And that's when I assume, yeah, he's dead. They're going to come in attracted by this music and just murder him.
Right.
But they don't show us that. They just
and he'll die happy because he created art to at the end. Mm-hmm. But I like Daryl's just like, this is a stupid detour kind of. It's just like
it for literally sure is.
Yeah, like this was the thing. Why did she want to take this path? Like, are they suggesting that deep down, unconsciously, she knew that Quinn might be there waiting for her, and she's like putting off that meeting? Because like,
yeah, I think it's hard for her, so she's delaying the inevitable.
So it's just hard for her to be in a city, like not like Quinn being there. Because I was like, man,
in Paris,
yeah. It's because like I was trying to think of like, do I buy that someone could bump into somebody in Paris in the zombie apocalypse? And I guess it's like it's one of those things where if they I don't know, is it any weirder than if they'd met in the middle of some other place? Because like he is from Paris and he's kind of like was it seems like both of them are kind of people who lived in the margins of society. So it kind of makes sense that he might rise to the top of some kind of quasi, you know, gray market, off the books enterprise, you know, like
it's barely believable. It's right on the ragged edge. I mean, with so many people in Paris. So like, I guess it's okay that he stayed there. It's okay that, yeah, he might rise to the top of some kind of organization underground. Yeah, if she goes back to the place where they lived before, sure. Like, all of these are like borderline, and together they add up to something that is very borderline believable.
Yeah.
Which I'm okay with. I guess I'll go with that. They're really like fast forwarding all of this stuff too, because we don't have a ton of episodes in this season. So I guess they really wanted to get us to Paris and start doing things, because we've covered hundreds and hundreds of miles in the last 3 episodes. Dude, I was
shocked. We went, like, you'll recall, we went to a very far western detour to get to Angers in the first point, and now we're going to go back, you know, hundreds more miles to Paris. And they're just, yeah, like the trip from southern France to Paris happened in 2 episodes. That was because you remember I was thinking like, oh, we might get to Paris in episode 5. So, but it looks like they're going to do a lot more with this Genet character, Genet, which I've been calling Ginnet.
Sure,
because I only saw it on subtitles. So Genet's army, the power of the living. I think that's the same group.
Yeah, it's tough for me to tell. I think so.
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, they get to Paris here. They've been writing for a while. They're outside Paris. They're looking at the Eiffel Tower from a distance here. Walk into the city. And kind of give Daryl a tour of the land and the culture a little bit. And then they're found by people who know about Laurent, this guy named Falou and his group.
Yeah. I really like this. I just something tickled me about the sequence of them walking through France with the Doors, Strange People, or People Are Strange playing in the background, and then they arrived at a famous cemetery in France where, you know, they have Molière, the author of Don Juan, and Proust, and La Fontaine, and Daryl's like, oh, where's Jim Morrison? And I thought that was just
the one.
And he's like this. Yeah, he's this American that died in Paris, and you know you can see kind of like Daryl, like processing that, and Laurent like, don't worry, Daryl, you're not going to be an American that dies in Paris. I thought it was all cute. I thought it was cool. I really like going past the Pantheon in France, and it just has that huge banner that says "Flee," and like that's like fucking metal. And like most of the city, like I was actually impressed. There was one where they're going over a bridge where you could definitely tell there's a lot of green screen being used. But most of the shit that they were doing, I was thinking was at least The Last of Us standards, like going through the ruins of Boston. I thought it compared favorably to that. If we're going to be making comparisons,
sure, yeah, no, it looks good. For the most part, this I do wonder how they filmed this cemetery scene with the Jim Morrison gravestone, because apparently that's a very big tourist attraction.
I had to shut it down. There's a couple things where it's like they clearly didn't. Like there was a couple things I think they did on a soundstage with green screens, and some things they did actually on location and scuffed it up. And I feel like the graveyard is the latter.
Man, you could do that. You could just buy out the graveyard if you have enough money.
I bet. I mean, everything's for sale. Did you get the idea that people are still putting roses on Jim Morrison's, because he has fresh roses on his grave in the apocalypse?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I thought the Bohemians like still have enough appreciation for Alton culture that someone is making a regular pilgrimage here to make sure there's still flowers on Morrison's grave.
Yeah, it's Quinn. Maybe he's a big fan. I don't know.
Could be.
I assume that's the only thing that, aside from the Eiffel Tower, that Daryl would recognize in France, right? Like, what else is he going to recognize?
Probably. I don't know. I was thinking the Arc de Triomphe, the Louvre. Would you recognize the glass triangle? I don't know. Like he said, like
maybe, but he'd be like, yeah, that's that pointy French building or whatever. Yeah.
He a lot of pointy buildings in France. It turns out in the tower But he says in this episode that before the apocalypse came, he didn't think much, if at all. So like, yeah, he's probably doesn't know much other than the Eiffel Tower.
True.
I thought
but he is akin to a kindred spirit with Jim Morrison. This thing written on his tombstone, it translates roughly to true to his own spirit. That feels like Daryl.
Yeah.
I think Daryl would like Jim Morrison.
I did a whole bunch of other research on different France that mostly proved fruitless. But like, I did wonder, like, why did Jim Morrison? I get you die in Paris, but like, you just get buried there.
Why be buried there?
Was that by his request? I could see it.
I don't know. Maybe.
I thought so. Like, if you want to look ahead at what's heading or what's coming down our way, they cite this fairy tale author, La Fontaine. And this story of this parable of a wary woodsman who wants to die, and when death finally comes, he has a change of heart and instead asks for help carrying his burdens. This, I don't think is Daryl yet, but I think it's going to be Daryl at the end of the season.
Well, it's definitely Isabel too, right?
Well, she's not a wary woodsman. Like, he literally is all these things. But yeah, no, you're right. They're definitely twinning their themes and storylines. Yeah,
for sure. Okay. Well, he's going to have to ask for help, which is something Daryl doesn't do very often.
Right.
Let's go to Falu taking Daryl's group to their home, which is a self-sustaining community, 64 people strong. Daryl just wants to get to the radio. Unfortunately, the radio has wings and a beak because it's a homing pigeon. And they let it fly and say, yeah, it could be a month before we get a response. Daryl says, nah. And then he wants to go, I don't know, find another way. And Falu says, hey, we could trade for a radio if we have the right currency. Isabel's like, yeah, I know where we can get some. We'll go in the morning.
Daryl's face when they start explaining how this is all going to work, and this guy talking about the pigeon having a girlfriend, and just like, nah, yeah, his like, yeah, fuck this, is really funny.
One of the other concepts I really liked in this was this idea of Paris crying. The Eiffel Tower has been damaged, and when the wind hits it in a certain way, the metal moves and groans, and you can hear it across the city, and he describes it as Paris crying. They're doing something really cool in this episode about like the state of Paris, but
and it ties back to
the spirit of the people and all that, you know.
And it ties back to the other guy making music out of wounded, broken things, right? And something beautiful, and they also
underground nightclub that's, you know, preserving the art and the soul of Paris, the bohemian soul. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff in there.
Daryl both are, say that they're both broken things that were healed through the apocalypse. So there's like, coming up with something new, beautiful, and joyous out of something broken and fragile. Like I said, that's what I meant. Like, this is an episode kind of being torn in two by, it's like, it's like it's citing all this great French poetry and philosophy and these artworks by Monet, the series of the Water Lily series, and yet, you know, it's also chained to its legacy of The Walking Dead, which is not a show that people take this seriously. So,
very true.
Bunch of frustrated French literature nerds trying to flex, and just not working.
The other thing I can't quite get over is how no one in France has ever been this willing to speak English for the sake of Americans before the fall. Now they're all like, oh yeah, we'll speak it, no problem. Before, if you wanted a baguette, you better be able to fucking order it in proper French, otherwise get the hell out.
Yeah. The other thing I think you're supposed to notice is like how the French communities live versus like the ones we've seen in America. Like, it just seems better. Like, I'd rather be in a random French commune than anything I've seen in America. Like, they are like running full-blown fucking nightclubs, and they're you know, running these benevolent interfaith nun convents, and they're like, it just seems pretty rad.
And then there's the experimenting to create new breeds of zombies and murdering people on boats.
This is true, but Ginny's not running around beating people with barbed baseball bats, and she's letting the said nightclub run without interference. Like, I don't know. It's a little, the French, the French. You gotta give it to them when credit's due.
Sure. I mean,
they know how to party. They know how to live well.
It seems like they got their shit more together than Deanna did. I mean,
by a damn sight.
Her community was just a wreck.
This seems like it's running very course. I mean, maybe it's just the presence of Daryl. Like, Daryl arrives at this community in 24 hours and it's getting its ass kicked in by the jackbooted. It's like, maybe the reason that the communities are all chill is they don't have Rick Michonne and Daryl running around. You know,
I noticed that Sybil seems pretty happy to talk to someone her own age for once, because she's pretty young. I don't know if she's a teenage. Sylvie, Sybil, whatever her name. Yeah. Sylvie. She's talking to, I don't know this dude's name either.
Bastion.
Because he introduces all of them at the same time. and I don't know which is which, but sure.
Yeah, Bastien is the young man who is testing this woman's marriage to Christ.
Sure.
Like, she's already smiling at him because
that contract is null and void after the apocalypse. I don't think. Look, God sends down this many plagues. You're able to renege on that contract.
And yet she took the vows after the fall. So what do you say to that?
I say it was all null and void, invalid contract.
No, she was kind of smiling and blushing around him when he was just being a good-looking guy. Then he takes her to the club and busts out some moves. Yeah, it's over. Mm-hmm. It's over. Mm-hmm. It's over. Gee, the lamb of hosts is going to get cucked, I'm afraid.
It happens all too often.
Yeah.
Do you think with this constant bait and switch with the radio that Daryl's ever going to get a working radio?
It's almost being played for laughs at this point.
Yes.
Where like Daryl's like, what about that radio? Oh, do you hear that, mon ami? It is Paris weeping. And he's like, okay, well, what about this? Oh, let me take you to our comms guy. And another couple minutes of French Jerry Lewis pratfalls happen, and it's like, what this radio? Oh, it's the pit. Yeah, it's got like a comic rhythm, I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Once an episode, I expect him to find a radio that's not a radio, or a radio that doesn't work.
And now it's about a boat. Like, it's not going to be about the radio. It's going to be about a boat. So there's going to be a lot of comedy about French people. Oh yeah, I have a means of conveyance, and like it's going to be, I don't know, 17 man of war rigged together paracord and a broken paddle. It's like, it's like one of those things. Daryl's going like, nah.
Mm-hmm. Daryl seems to react to the phrase, we all have a person who waits for us somewhere. How much has he given up on Rick? Is Rick his person? Is Connie his person? Is is this person that he's reacting for?
They pumped the brakes hard on that Connie thing.
I know.
In the last season,
Carol? I mean,
I think it's still Carol. I think it's Carol, or it could be like Judith.
Okay.
He's got an important relationship with her. But like, when I think of the person that is waiting for him, I go right to Carol.
Sure. That's the deepest relationship he's had in this show.
100%.
But I think that's like the hope part of the truth and hope, right? The idea that, yeah, it's very unlikely that the people that we loved wherever we were from survived this experience, but we can always hope.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second half of the scene is they see Laurent being given offerings from the community, and he spots someone whose husband died a few days ago and is inconsolable, and he walks up and instantly consoles her.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what my notes. That's exactly what I put in my notes to the word. I don't know. I actually think it's way more interesting if they explored a possibility that Daryl outlines at the end of this, towards the end of this episode, that what if he's just a normal kid and you guys have all needed him to be special? Because he's like, I don't know what I did to console. This woman's been told this story of this chosen one child, and I mean, look, I used to be a Jehovah's Witness, and in my not very long career, like at least once or twice, you knock on a person's door who's having like a fucking crisis, like a mental health crisis, a family crisis, and a man of God on their doorstep with a scripture, and it's just like, oh my God, I was just praying for something last night or this morning. People make so this woman has been heard as this chosen child. Her husband dies like 2 days ago, and he shows up and gives her a hug. Like, I don't know that there's any there. This all feels like flim flam, but
of course.
And the other thing is, like, they haven't told the kid about his purpose. So like, he kind of takes in stride all these people just giving him shit. Like it's like Neo in the second Matrix, where it's like every time he gets off to Nebuchadnezzar, he has to like wade through a bunch of people giving him bowls of rice and tofu curry and things because he's the chosen one. And I felt like that's another symptom of the series being a little bit stretched too thin and stuffed too full, is that like I don't know, that moment seemed like it would have been landed better if he like fully appreciated it, or maybe that's the point, is like they're having him look confused and him like doing things instinctively. But I guess this is me rambling to say, do you think there's anything there, or do you think that it's all going to be like Daryl says, the adults needing their lives to make meaning?
I mean, it definitely feels like that to me, and I don't know. I mean, obviously the show goes to the supernatural, right? The undead themselves are pretty supernatural, so they could go to some kind of, actual savior here, but I don't think so. I think there's a line in here about God chooses our burdens, and I'm like, well, you're the one who named the kid after a saint. You're the one who's been lying to him, not telling him what you think about like his true nature and all this. You're putting those burdens on yourself and him, but it's something she needed at the time, right? She just lost her sister. She just lost the world. She's now got this child she has to care for. She needs this to be something more than just like, I'm stuck in a shitty situation.
Yeah. And yeah, you said it.
I think it's just that. I don't think there's anything to Laurent being like some kind of literal savior figure.
Yeah.
If he is a savior, it's only through like what he represents for people.
And so many of those pithy sayings like God chooses our burdens can be turned around to be like, yeah, and God's chosen to burden you with the knowledge that you've wasted this kid's life, turning him into a messiah. And, you're going to feel as guilty about that as you do about, Emily's or Amy's shambling ass this episode. Like, I think they would set that up too. Like, these are, we don't know it yet, but like, we see a child that she let down, and I think you're supposed to understand that she's doing the same thing with Laurent, unless Daryl's just completely out of left field, and I don't, he's got the name on the show. I think he's probably got a point here.
Yeah. Does seem like he's going to get guilted into taking this kid farther, though.
And Daryl, like I said, there's some really great nonverbal acting by Norman Reedus, because he's just off his side seeing all of this, like Thoreau, being like, Sacre bleu, Pierre Jean was right. And, everybody's taking this as like a sign, this kid giving a hug.
Yeah. And making a woman smile. So Sad Max goes to see Jeanne. He plays Daryl's tape for her, proving he's alive, and offers to go get him for her. She hires him and then shows him an experiment where they're working on, I think making extra strong walkers. I don't know. They can only get him to survive for 18 seconds. I assume they're making an army of the dead.
Yeah, what was that? Was it Bubs? Was the
Bub.
Zombie they're trying to train to hold a gun in Day of the Dead?
Uh-huh. Yep.
God damn it, Jim. After 12 years, you've almost made me a zombie expert.
Yeah, you know a thing or two.
I went from zero to dropping Bubs references in 12 years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm not sure what... And Jeanne is an interesting person. She's like this, like, completely buttoned down, tight-laced military commander that the second she gets behind closed doors rolls up a doob. To have a meeting with one of her lieutenants that she's never met. Like that's an interesting choice, right? That says something that she's got a little bit of the boheme in her as well, maybe.
Perhaps, yeah.
Is that
That's why she lets Quinn do his thing?
Yeah. But I it really, like, this fucking voice recorder paying off this way really bugs the shit out of me, because we called it, it's like there in no universe does Daryl go through
record his inner monologue. Get the fuck out of here. He barely has one, let alone record it.
Like Daryl's going to start at the age of 53 in a zombie apocalypse keeping up a diary, and then he's gonna
it's real dumb, but what are you gonna do? That's the show.
Yeah, especially when he plays like, I'm Daryl Dixon, I'm from Alexandria, I'm the man you're looking for. It's just... But everything else I actually like about this Codron guy. I think Codrol. I think he, like, the said I promised my parents, because she's like, well, why should I trust you? Why should why should I believe you're the man of the job, that he's escaped so many of our best troops? And he goes, I'm the guy who's never going to quit, because I promised my parents I'd looked after my brother, and this fucking American made a liar out of me. I thought that was a really cool, great motivation, and it's a great way to tell this person, trust me with this important job.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's immediately ingratiating, right?
What do you think about this experiment? What do you think?
I mean, clearly they're making it strong, right? Most walkers couldn't rip their way out of shackles.
Chains. Yeah, that's true. So they're strengthening it.
But they're still very, very weak, like, structurally, you know? Like, I expected it to start rampage. I'm like, why aren't these people running? This is glass between them, and this walker is just going to plow right through it, and then it smashes up against the glass and dies.
Well, but its brain was bubbling. Like, its brain was exploding. So it's like, I don't know that it, like, at first I thought that too. It's like, well, that's anticlimactic. It runs into glass and kills itself. Like, I just watched, or I'm about to watch zombies plummet from a 7-story window and get up. Like, what the hell? But like, as his head is against the wall, like, his brain just bubbles and explodes. Like, he got exposed to VX nerve gas and the rock. So like,
yeah,
it's like, my question is the zombie super strength the point, or is this an attempt to cure zombieism and it just had a weird side effect? Or are they trying to like create new, like they've seen zombies evolve and now they're trying to like create the conditions to.
Well, so that's the thing. I don't know if they've seen zombies evolve or if one of their experiments got out into the wild and has taken over.
That's what the flaming zombies
burners, boilers, whatever they're called, are. Yeah,
like Cheetos. Zombies are like Cheetos. They come in flavors now. They got the flaming hot, the extra cheesy.
I don't know. I don't know
it's
think here.
It's a cool idea. It's another one where The Walking Dead feels like they're caught. Like, the Z Nation move would be to have a whole bunch of video game zombies that all have a bunch of special powers and stuff. But that's like way further away than most of the stuff they're trying to do in Daryl Dixon. We'll see. I don't know. They got a zombie head in a glass jar. I always think like that says zombie science. That's a serious zombie scientist when you got a living quotation marks zombie head in a jar in your laboratory.
Yeah. Either that or crazy man like the governor.
There's science being done. Poindexter was doing science.
That's true. He was doing legit science. Daryl and Isabel go to her old apartment and look at photos. Isabel grabs a bunch of stolen goods and cocaine to use as currency. She tells Daryl about a bar that her friends used to go to where they talked about changing the world. Daryl says, I've never done much thinking. Despite that, they're kindred spirits.
It's remarkable how non-committal he is to this. Like, he is trying very hard to keep her at arm's length. Like, you know, she's, you know, like, hey, I'm glad. It's like, we're the same, you and I, broken till the world ends. He's, maybe. And he's like, glad we crossed paths. He's like, yeah, it's time for us to go. And it's like, and I think it's because he understands that he can feel her trying to wrap the tendrils of sympathy around him. Like, well, you can't go, Daryl, to break Laurent's heart. We need a strong fighter. And he's like, yeah, you've lied to me from day one about this fucking radio situation, and I'm not committing anymore. I just want the radio, man. I just want my boat.
And I've got my people at home. Like, that's the real driving force, right? He wants to get back to his people. He doesn't want to find new people here.
Because that's the other thing. I think the other subtext of Isabel is that she's never really found her people. Like, the nuns were an alliance of convenience that she jumped into because the only purpose she had to live was her sister's kid at that point. But she, like, you know, you can see how she's attracted to the stuff going on at the nightclub. She's, like, you know, wistful about that. And I think that's a part of it, too, is that Daryl is much closer to the type of person she is than anybody else. And she doesn't have that family that he's trying to get back to. Which, I don't know, maybe she'll be a main character of the Walking Dead
he didn't have
universe.
It before either, right? I mean, like, Daryl has taken a long journey to find his people. And he started out as this loner also. So
he had to kill some of his family to hold on to his family.
Literally. They were looking at these photos here, and it seems like we were right about Quinn. He is some sort of previous love interest, right? Boyfriend, probably not a husband. It didn't seem that serious. But Daryl's like, oh, yeah, he's looking at these photos. He's like, you upgraded. I mean, with God, there's this awkward moment where he thinks, oh, I hope she doesn't think I mean me. But he could have said me and been just as right.
He totally could have. He totally could have.
He's Daryl fucking Dixon.
And so but it's a little bit more complex than that, because Quinn also had a relationship, or what feels like a romantic relationship with Isabel too. And maybe that's why it was secret.
With Isabel? You mean Lily?
No, I'm saying that I think he had a physical relationship with Isabel.
Yeah, 100%. That's what we're seeing in the scene.
And he was cheating on her with Lily. Okay, that's okay.
Everything we deduced last episode is we find out is true this episode.
They threw me a little off the track when she started talking about her neighbors, and there was this boy that the neighbors were always, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if they're going to go with that's, Hickey or Quinn or whatever, Quinn. But no, I think that they were in some sort of relationship. He's cheating on her with Lily. That's why everyone is being cagey about everything. Probably imagine Lily's like, I haven't told you I'm pregnant because I'd have to answer way too many questions.
Yeah, for sure.
But the fact that
every beat of this show we have seen coming kind of a mile away.
True.
Except for the many miles we covered to get to Paris in episode 3.
They'd save the cat. I thought the catacombs would be a lot more zombie-rific, and but why? But when I was thinking about it, I'm like, why would they? They're like you just can't walk into the catacombs right now in France, and like there's no living people down there. Why would there be teams of zombies unless they did something like in The Last of Us, where like like the military and the last ditch drove them all under there, but clearly that's not what happened. So like it's also an interesting contrast that like the top side of France is like dangerous and teeming with zombies, but the necropolis is like a safe zone for humans to live.
Love it.
Like I said, the show is like a zombie musician flailing at some cool things and beating a drum every once in a while, but it just can't quite string notes together.
No, I definitely want to talk more about the catacombs here in a second. The currency here that they're grabbing, fancy watches, 8 balls, worth something in the apocalypse? I feel like, why would cocaine, unless it's like mass quantities of cocaine, why would cocaine be worth anything? Why is a little baggie worth anything?
You're telling me that you're a 25-year-old soldier that never knew cocaine and only heard the story. You've seen Goodfellas, and you've seen
you haven't seen Goodfellas.
If the world fell when you're 12 or 13
at 12 years old. Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, that's a lot of people. But you see all this, and someone says, I've got an 8 ball of genuine pre-apocalypse Colombian cocaine. That's not worth something. Yeah, you can never do it again. But I think that would be literally priceless.
These people make terrible trades all the time. I mean, hazelnuts for weapons is just the dumbest trade I can think of. Let's give you something that you're going to use for all of 30 seconds, the hazelnuts, for something that is literally a lifesaver in this world.
Yeah, but if I got 100 guns and I'm fiending for the taste of Nutella, I might make that trade. Yeah, I mean, the man with one gun does not trade for a handful of hazelnuts. The man who is security or a high-ranking member of the Paris underworld who has...
I mean, he is a bohemian, I guess, so he's not a serious person. Like, he's looking to live it up before he dies, not preserve his own life and maybe recreate a society here. He's just looking to eat a few hazelnuts before he goes.
Plus, apparently, Quinn forbids the uses of weapons there, and which seems
in the club,
insane in the club, right? Because everyone's weapons stay in the freezer.
Yeah.
Seems dangerous if a zombie horde came to get him, but I guess they feel very secure in the catacombs.
Yeah, I guess maybe he's not trading for weapons. He's just saying, put your weapons in the freezer. He's trading for information. Hazelnuts for information, that's a great trade, because information you get to keep. That's the beautiful thing about trading information. You still have it once you trade it.
Times. Yeah.
It's like copying that floppy. Nothing was lost. You still have your floppy. I just have it now too. I could have sworn I recognized this broken until the world ends ended line. Was that said earlier, or was that just a scene that they put in the trailer?
It might be a scene they put in the trailer.
Just talking about how kindred spirits the Isabel and Daryl are. Yeah. And then we go over.
What'd you think of? Because we kind of skipped past. What'd you think of Daryl picking a lock with a burning zombie?
Yeah, so this scene where Daryl and Isabel go to leave, they're walking.
Oh, I thought we already went to the club. I'm sorry.
No, we were just talking out of school here, or out of turn. They go to the back, they spot Scooter Girl, which, boom, we called that again, obviously. Mm-hmm. Then the happening starts happening. Walkers are falling out of windows, burning the ground around them. They're surrounded by burners, so Daryl uses one to burn their way through the gate. I guess he's not burning the gate itself, he's burning the vines that are holding the gate shut.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I saw what it did to his skin. It might work.
I thought it was pretty cool. What I didn't think was cool is the zombies surviving a 7-story drop into cement.
Well,
like, to me, the way to do that is you have, a couple of them plummet from a height, but then you see one from like 1 or 2 stories up and the glass is cracking. And it's like, but I don't know. There's like, this is a trend, and it's something I don't like that I've really noticed the last year or two of people putting our characters in mortal danger that they shouldn't be, or way too much for them to survive. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, I don't know why it's worth giving, like, oh my God, that zombie got back. You're breaking your universe's rules to give us a momentary shock and surprise at something.
Well, maybe they're establishing the new rules. Walkers have evolved.
Okay, then Daryl can't. No one can ever hit a zombie in the head with a baseball bat and kill it, because I promise you, a head first fall from 7 floors is going to hit a lot harder than that baseball bat.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They want it simultaneously both ways, right? They want the walkers to be able to land flat on their heads and get back up, but also, and specifically I'm talking about burners, they want them to be able to land on their heads, get back up, but also Daryl to be able to put a pipe through the base of their skull and kill them, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to make them actually as resilient as they'd need to be to survive that fall.
And that's something I appreciated about the Kang era, is I felt like she paid a lot more attention to that and reined in, kind of like, well, if we do that, that contradicts, and her name is on the title sequence. She's still, making money as executive producer, but she's not otherwise involved. And I feel like you're starting to see some of the, this is Scott Gimple's show, and that's the Scott Gimple era. Like, trade years of careful world building for one scene that's kind of sort of exciting.
Sure. Scooter Girl, though. Scooter Girl.
But that's like, to me, this is the other epitome of the show being torn in 2 directions. Like, this immediately harkens back to, like, Bicycle Girl, right?
Obviously.
Or the Teddy Bear Girl is probably the most direct analogy. And, like, you think about how that hits and how futile it is that, like, 12 years later to gin up the sad music and the soft cinematography. And I guess it's I don't know. It's like one of those things where it's like they're trying to go back to the Frank Darabont era, and it just doesn't seem to work, because
we're so far from that.
All the Gimple.
Yeah, tonally. I mean, we're just miles away, and they're trying to cover the ground from Marseille to Paris in a single day, a single episode.
But I did, it meant a lot to Isabel, and I think that they are going to set up something really interesting between juxtaposing Isabel and Amy. Or I'm sorry, Laurent and Amy, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's this weird little sequence here where they're meeting up with Laurent and his friends and Falou. And like, before they actually meet up with them, they're kind of sitting in a tunnel just reflecting on what they just experienced, and Isabel's like, I left her. And there's this weird beat, and then, like, it's interrupted by Laurent showing up. So it felt just weird tonally.
Yeah, they're waiting, but that's my question. Is like, well, why are you going there and coming back? But I don't know topography. Maybe it's these, like, it allows them to skip the dangerous part and not backtrack through, rather.
Yeah, I really don't know. But they meet up with Laurent and his friends. Isabel gives Laurent a picture of his mother, which makes him happy. And then Falou takes the group to make contact with the traitor. They traverse the catacombs and emerge in a nightclub. And Falu kind of goes off to find his contact, leaving the rest to their own devices. And Daryl and Isabel look at art. Okay, let's talk about the catacombs. Are the catacombs the most metal thing that exists on this planet?
I mean,
that you can make a it's either that or the bodies exhibit. Like the two things I'm aware of that are the most metal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like 6 million. So much death that you had to start making structures out of people.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I just thought it's a great that line where he's like, America is a baby country. Paris has survived many apocalypses and will survive this one too. It's like,
yeah,
if you look at it from that, like, like obviously 99% of the world's population is worse than but like there's parts of Europe that wasn't it like a half, 2/3 of the population. Like it. I mean, can you imagine? Like, we just went through this COVID thing, which was like just a breath mint compared to the full course meal of apocalypse. It's like that every major city and around the world loses 2/3 of its people in like the space of a year or two. Insane. But thematically, it makes a really, really good point. And like you said, the catacombs, what a great backdrop to this, and the fact that it's. The catacombs is the chrysalis that is, protecting this metamorphosis of humanity into these artful bohemian beings. I really like that too. That something not just living but vivacious is emerging from this death.
And I can't imagine in modern day doing anything like the catacombs, right? I mean, we do create stuff out of our dead, but it's out of sight. It's very like we want to get the actual death out of sight and have this beautiful thing that we can put in its place, right? This tombstone marker. Whereas in Paris, they've said, no, let's take the actual remains of the person and let's build them into something. It's so... I just can't imagine anything being done like that in modern society.
Oh, God, no. You want to build...
We're not comfortable enough with the life cycle of humans to do anything like that. We try and avoid confronting it at all costs.
I would submit that killing 2/3 of our adult population might change society.
It might reconnect us with that.
Because like it's like, why were they so obsessed with death and so morbid in the middle? Because like it was all around them, man. You know, we're lucky that we have a little control over that. Yeah, for sure. I did start a couple of bone altars myself during COVID, but really,
I don't think the government would approve, so I'm not going to say where they are. Yeah,
just from the buckets of KFC that you ordered in.
Yeah,
I thought your entryway made me hungry for wings.
It's the smell. The smell never really goes away, so you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
The water lilies reminds Daryl of home. How about that?
I've never seen anything in Georgia that looks like that. I'm sorry.
I could see it. A lake with some lily pads. Yeah, I could totally see it.
It's cool, and I'm glad that someone's saving those Monets.
Yeah, it seems like Quinn is quite the art collector. He's collecting that old culture of Paris.
I did find, like, they had this nightlife, this nightclub in Paris, and it's cool and all, but I'm like, is this weird enough for 12 years in a zombie apocalypse? Like, this is just about weird enough for, like, a 2015 nightclub. It actually reminded me a lot of in Schmigadoon, which is the musical parody series they got going on Apple Plus. Protagonists come to Schmicago, which is a fantasy version of the Chicago, and it's kind of like a Chicago cabaret mashup. But there's like this a lot of both of those musicals are these people talking about like how nonconformist they are, and like especially with cabaret. Like, what was nonconformist in, like, 1940s is kind of, like, passé, and it's like, they're singing, like, we have premarital sex, and some of us have tattoos, and some of our boys are girls, and some of our girls are boys, and, like, the people, like, it's Keegan-Michael Key and Cecily, and they're just sitting there like, yeah, and like our neighbors in our neighborhood are weirder than this. Like, what's going? It felt a little bit like this is there should be a little bit more death and zombie and macabre to the gender nonconformity and the body modification. No, yeah.
I mean, I agree. It's nothing that you would expect outside of a normal like cabaret theater or burlesque show or something, right? There's
or is that
nothing
the point
crazy
that,
here
that they're trying to recreate like a pre-fall nightlife, and they're studiously keeping the zombie apocalypse out of it.
It could be.
It's not very bohemian, gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, I get the impression that this is kind of the nightlife that they enjoyed, both Isabel and Quinn, right? Like, she talks almost fondly about, hey, yeah, they used to have nightclubs back in the day when she's talking to Laurent.
She lit up, yeah.
She kind of misses that life, but also, it wasn't a good life. I mean, look at what she tried to do. She tried to kill herself, right? That life took its toll. So is it really something to miss?
Yeah.
And how happy can Quinn be here having recreated it? I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how to read Quinn. We'll get there, though. Sybil gets to know this Bastin guy, I guess, while they dance.
Sylvie.
Sybil, yep.
You're gonna be really fucked up in season 2 of Loki. You keep getting Sylvie and Sybil mixed up.
Oh, true. Isabel's gonna trade her drugs for contact with people who might be able to help Daryl get back to America, but Daryl doesn't want to pay up front. He says, no. Starts a fight, which attracts the attention of the boss, who turns out to be Quinn, much to her shock. Quinn tells Daryl it might be possible to get back to America.
Yeah, it's an interesting study of Daryl here, like having his fate being bargained for in a language he doesn't understand, like really upset him. And it's one because like Daryl's like, you think of this guy who's just kind of like, happy-go-lucky, goes with the flow, doesn't have any but like he actually needs a large amount of control to feel comfortable.
Seems like
and it sent him into like a near panic. These people they're talking like he just gets like every other word or something. And he's like, "What are you talking about? What?" It's a scary situation. He's in a weak position. He doesn't like it.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't even have anything to barter with. It's all Isabel's stuff, right?
Exactly. So. He's relying on someone. And the other thing is, it goes back to he fundamentally doesn't trust Isabel because she's lied to him, and she lies to all the people that are close to her.
Right? Can he even trust that they're saying what she says they're saying?
Yeah, exactly. But predictably, he escalates it to something he's comfortable. He's not comfortable with French language,
violence.
Is comfortable with physical violence.
Yeah.
And we find out they kind of told us, but this is the let us know that like, hey, weapons aren't allowed here. And I liked it. He cut the dude's nose. Seemed like an appropriate punishment. And then the mistress of ceremony stomps over and grabs the knife. It's like, boys will be boys. I enjoyed all that.
Yeah, it's a good scene. I really like how Quinn reacts to seeing Isabel here. He plays it very cool.
Very cool.
He's able to last about a minute into this scene after already having realized who she is before even acknowledging her, right? He's dealing with his own business, and then he's going to acknowledge this new thing. And I fundamentally take him very seriously here because of the way he's acting.
He seems like a man who's very much in control of his emotions and probably uses that to be pretty manipulative.
Yeah, his emotions and the setting as well. This is his club. These are his people, all under his control.
Yeah, he seems very powerful and confident.
Uh-huh. And maybe a guy you wouldn't want to cross. So we go out to, I guess, the bar portion of the nightclub here. Laurent talks with Anna Valerie, who's the singer here. Shows her the picture of his mother. He says he likes her Eiffel Tower necklace, so she gives it to him. And it seems pretty obvious here that, Anna and Quinn are involved based on the way she's looking over at him. And then later she'll make it a little more explicit.
Are they involved, or does she want to be involved? Because that's the thing is like, it's telling us something either way. Like, he is this button down guy who kind of wraps women around his finger and then uses their emotions to manipulate them? Or is she kind of like trying to overreach? Is she trying to like ingratiate herself to the guy who owns the club? I'm not sure.
It's tough to tell because of the wild card that is Isabel showing up. You know, how does he act when, you know, Isabel is in his rearview mirror? How does he act when he doesn't have to discipline his men and that's kind of bothering him in the moment, right? It's hard to know for sure. But yeah, if it's one-sided, Anna's still all about it, I think.
Yeah, the Anna Valerie's, the singer, like, we haven't seen the last of her.
No,
like, her and Quinn are both going to be somehow going to be involved. Like, I'm not sure how they're going to keep like Codron, the antagonist, Quinn, a secondary antagonist. I'm not sure how they're going to keep all these people on Daryl's ass the rest of the season. But clearly they intend to do that.
Seems like it, based on how this episode ends. And I assumed when I saw Laurent showing her this picture of his mother that this was going to come back on the group somehow. I don't think that's still on the table because I feel like they've dealt with all of that after Quinn acknowledges, yeah, you should have told me I had a kid, all that stuff. So I don't know if it's going to come back on them. This Eiffel Tower necklace.
Because by the end,
like in some way that I guess they didn't expect. You know, we showed her this necklace and she uses that later to get one over on us or something, or somebody looks at it and realizes, you know Quinn and therefore you're this person when you're really not, or something, you know.
The problem is, I don't know. They've done all the reveals I think they're going to do in terms of like Laurent's parentage. And the other thing I was surprised is they already played the card where the soldiers show up and wreck the little community that we got to know. So it's like, and the only other place that we care about is the convent, which already got his shit wrecked in. So it seems like all the consequences have already been applied. I thought it was the jealousy, because there is a hard edge to her charming this. This isn't like a nightclub singer who's charmed at this like seemingly worldly 14-year-old that's complimenting on her singing, and she's just kind of like, kind of charmed in that. There's a hardness, like her smile does not touch her eyes. She, I think, sees that this is probably a former love and is with like a new boyfriend trying to bend I keep on wanting to call him Hickey Quinn. Bend Quinn over a barrel, and she doesn't like it. She doesn't like this, but she's being nasty nice. That's how I interpreted it.
Okay.
And Laurent's too much of a naive kid to understand the subtle undertones.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's a very like, she's giving him the necklace, but it's also a very curt, very just like, I don't even know how to say it. There's some edge to it for sure. I don't know how that comes back. I don't know why that matters at this point.
I think so. It's my thought that, because who told Laurent? Who got Laurent all spun up? Is he just mad that the community is getting attacked by soldiers and he's blaming Daryl and Isabel for it? Because my idea is that this Valerie person like dropped some stuff to Laurent that's got him all pissed off. Yeah, that his mom died and all this stuff, all the things that Isabel's been lying to him about for years. But I don't know. Like, I don't know if the timing on that works out.
I'm not sure either.
That they leave the club. Valerie has a fight with Quinn. Quinn tells her more than he has to, because like seems like he's perfectly fine just telling her shut the fuck up and go sing again. I don't know. I don't know, but that's the only thing I think is that we're supposed to understand that she told Laurent things he wasn't meant to understand yet.
Could be. So Quinn says he'll ask around about Daryl's request. He's introduced to Laurent, and Isabel tells Sylvie, I guess, to take Laurent back to the community. And then Quinn invites Isabel and Daryl to his office, which is filled with, let's say, cultural valuables. And now, Quinn finds out that he had a son here. And he says if Daryl wants a boat, now he knows the terms, which I think means you have to maybe leave Laurent here, or at least introduce me. I'm not sure exactly what the terms are. I really don't know.
Yeah, when he goes, now you know the terms. The only thing that makes sense is sexual favors, because she says, look, there, I can do this. If it was like you got to leave Laurent here, that would be a non-starter with her, right? She's got to give him to the nest.
You would think so.
But maybe she's saying, trust me that I can finagle this. But like, because like the thing is like, it felt weird if the stakes were sexual favors, because I didn't feel like Quinn cared really about it that way.
No, that had not even crossed my mind. I thought it was all centered around Laurent, who...
Or that you have to tell Laurent that I'm his dad. You have to give me a chance to have a relationship with him. You got to...
Yeah, because the thing he says that really stuck out to me is a father should know his son, right? And he looks over at Daryl when he says that. And that's the thing that stuck with me. So in my mind, those are the terms. Like, I need to be able to know Laurent, which either means introduce me here and now, or he's got to stay here. But the latter of that would just be, like you said, a non-starter for her.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see, because like this immediately gets busted up by an action scene, so we're gonna have to wait to, I guess, see if we get a better clue next week. But I also really like them using these old World War II tunnels that were used by the French, and then the Germans took over, and they had the Vichy occupation, and like there's something really satisfying about, like, it says a lot about Quinn, and he's talking about he admires that kind of pragmatism that like. His building is useful for many different people doing many different things, and I'm the latest one that it's useful for. I thought it's a nice piece of world building. Yeah, for sure. And also the idea of like, are they the good guys or the bad guys? Well, it depends on your point of view. So that same applies to Quinn, right? Yeah. Is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? We don't really know yet, I guess. There's a lot of stuff that in my mind tips him into bad, but not certain. So Isabel is pissed at Daryl for pulling her out of that situation. She tells him to stop trying to be her hero because she doesn't need one. I don't know. It's tough to gauge this because I felt like there's some things lost in editing, because I understand why she's angry and why she is deflecting this anger towards Daryl. I don't understand why literally 5 minutes later, without any other reflection and talking, she's apologizing to him. It feels like she would still be, but like, I think maybe there's some time. They didn't do a good job of expressing like there's a passage of time, or that. And
Daryl's like, you're not mad at me. You're mad at the situation, right? And I think he's right. I think he's right about that.
Yeah.
So Sylvie tells Sera about the nest, which is a safe place they're trying to get to, and how he gives people hope. And she tells him to go to sleep, but he's a kid, so of course he doesn't. He just stays awake looking at his mother's photo. I don't know. I don't really have anything to say about that scene. Because Sad Max is about to break in. Sad Max busts into the nightclub with some thugs to ask Quinn about Daryl. And Isabel apologizes to Daryl for snapping at him, explains, I was really just, pissed about having to face my demons here. And she explains the situation about Laurent and Quinn, and Daryl says she should stop lying to the kid, like he said 10 times before, right? Laurent tells them both that he hates them, just as Sad Max's guys bust in. Daryl tells Isabel to go get Laurent, meet him back at her apartment, and then he runs the opposite way with Sad Max chasing him. There's a big fight. And then, boy, textbook cliffhanger at the end of this episode. Textbook, just color by numbers cliffhanger.
A Daryl sinker. It's not quite a cliffhanger.
True.
I don't know. Like, to me, the end of this episode is a bit of a mess, because I think they were trying to find the cliffhanger, and there wasn't a natural point. And I don't know, like, why you couldn't just make an hour, 15-minute episode or whatever. But Yeah, I felt like the her need to apologize was too rushed, but maybe it's just supposed to be insincere because Daryl's not having it, right? Like this is like the third time she's tried to level with him and make a connection, and he's like, you need to stop lying about him. He's got a shit dad, and if that's, he needs to know that, and he needs to figure out what it means to him. And like, is he really a gift of God, or is that something that you need to believe to be true? Maybe he's just a regular kid who lived, which is already a miracle enough for this world. Like, I thought this is a really strong scene. I don't understand why Laurent stumbles in and shouts that he hates them both and takes off, because the other thing is, like, I was assuming that this was right outside the club. And then when Kodrin shows up and you're like, oh no, this is actually, so like, did Laurent he just sees like the soldiers come in and start busting up this community of people that he's kind of grown to care about, and he blames Daryl and Isabel for taking him there and making this happen? Or because like if he's in the enclave, I don't know who would give him information that would make him say this thing. It's got to be just reaction to the soldiers coming and him the horror of like, this keeping happening to him of late, right?
You might be right about the Anna Valerie stuff. She might have told Laurent. I think that's like the most reasonable explanation.
Except for I don't think that the timing and location lines up for that. Yeah, I agree, but like,
maybe
when did that conversation take place?
So we don't clearly while they were in Quinn's office, right? I mean,
but she didn't know.
Well,
right?
We don't know that she didn't know because she saw the picture of Lily.
Yeah.
Can we assume that there is a picture of Lily somewhere in Quinn's office?
Her eyes. She's got her mother's eyes. Maybe. Yeah.
She's talking with Laurent.
Okay.
Maybe she decided, I'm going to go back and tell this fucking kid. He needs to know.
Next question. Why would Laurent wait until just when the soldiers busted in to come in and be like, I hate you both? For, like he was just sitting there and stewing for a couple hours, or... It feels like this soldier's coming and this being like the second or third time that they're leaving a location in flames is the thing. And like he's running from them. He doesn't want to be with them anymore. Like he doesn't trust them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what would have triggered it other than finding out that they've been lying to him about his parentage for so long.
Like I said, I think the fact that every place that Daryl goes, everyone that he cares about dies. That's a pretty good reason to turn against them. Because he doesn't say like you're lying. He just says, I hate you both.
Mm-hmm.
And this takes off as the soldiers searching.
Hate that guy. He's the problem. We were fine at the Abbey until Daryl showed up.
I thought the fighting is pretty good. It does seem like, like what I would expect, that like Daryl is going to just take this guy. Like, he needed about 15 more seconds to have this guy dead.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saved by his soldiers showing up and driving Daryl off.
Yeah, now he knows who he's messing with, So
we have like a multiple cliffhanger. We got Daryl sinking into this building. It's no doubt full of walkers. And then we've got Laurent, just in the city with Isabel desperately trying to find him.
Yeah.
And I'd like the scene of him doing the Neo, like jumping over jumping over the alley full of walkers from building to building, and like Kodrin doing this, screwing up his courage to do the same thing because he's driven,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he's gonna be chastened because like Daryl's second time, Daryl's gotten the better of him.
Yeah. He better just keep his guys around him because Daryl can take him one-on-one. But that's it, man. That's the episode. We leave Daryl literally as he's falling into, like, through a rooftop into a building.
As it started raining. That's a really nice shot of the night sky at the full moon peeking out behind the storm clouds. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see what happens next week. We got feedback. Would you care to hear it, Jim?
I would love to.
WalkingDead@baldmove.com is how you get in touch with us. First up, Rachel from Texas says, on the Daryl Dixon Episode 2 podcast, you wish for a Rat King-style zombie. My friends, I'm happy to tell you exists. This is minor spoilers for the broader Walking Dead universe. So if you don't want to know what may or may not have happened in spin-offs in the last few years, just goose it forward about 30 seconds. Spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen Dead City. In Dead City Episode 5, Maggie fights one that has at least 4 zombies intertwined. In the behind-the-scenes interviews for the show, it was described as what would happen if one zombie stepped through another zombie and then picked up others along the way. I thought it seemed very plausible.
Zombasi? I tried to get there.
Zombie DeMarcy. It seems very much implausible even in the Walking Dead universe, but I thought it was interesting to see. I don't know that. I think it's especially plausible in the Walking Dead universe because these did you see some of these zombies in the orchestra? Mm-hmm. They're like a spine and a skull and 3 fingers, and they're still alive. So imagine 5 or 6 zombies trapped in a dumpster for 7 or 8 summers in Georgia. You're saying that those wouldn't congeal?
Yeah, I mean, it's the brain, right? The brain is the thing. If a zombie has any part of its brain left, it can continue to exist. So, yeah, I would think they can congeal together.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that we missed the Dead City big rat zombie reveal, because that's something that I kind of been wondering if they would ever do in The Walking Dead. And the very first time I take my eye off the ball, they trot it out.
If you're going to have a Rat King zombie anywhere, it's going to be New York City, right?
I mean...
And Paris or New York City, but Paris we're watching, so...
Karen says, I've been a club member since the Game of Thrones days, but this is the first time I've been compelled to write. I simply must address your mischaracterization of Adam Nagasis' career. I agree that Adam has played a monster or two, but it's incorrect to claim that he only plays shit heels. Shame, shame, shame. I know you've seen Chernobyl. Have you forgotten that Nagatis played Vasily Ignatenko, the young married firefighter who met a very grim end after working to contain the radiation in the reactor? Definitely not a shit heel.
True.
Karen, you got us. One time in this man's wretched cinematic career has he played a person that had moral virtue. And that was that firefighter. We're now 3 out of 3 shit heel. Although I'm surprised you're resisting to call this guy a bad guy.
Look, I've seen bad guys in The Walking Dead. He's a gray area guy, comparatively.
He's not the governor. He's not Negan.
Right.
But, I mean, knowing that
at least not
that
yet.
was that he knew that Lily was pregnant with his child, that's cold as fuck what he was doing in episode 2.
Oh, I agree.
And sisters... One of these sisters is you saved her from a suicide attempt, probably because you had something to do with it. And then you go fuck her teenage daughter behind her back. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I'm comfortable in saying that this guy is got a large glob of shit on his heel, if not a whole turd.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm waiting for the reveal that shows what his true, how big of a monster he is. Because I don't think we've seen the end of it.
Well, they're also
really my reservation is proclaiming him a monster now, because where do I go from there, right?
A super monster, a rat monster.
Bunch of monsters melded together.
Zach S said, I want to write in a comment I expected to hear brought up by now, but seemingly hasn't been discussed in the podcast at all. I'd like to discuss The Last of Us of it all. In the preview podcast for the show, you guys mentioned that you were worried about the show might just feel like a B-level ripoff of The Last of Us. It hasn't come up again since. It surprised me because in many senses is exactly what the show feels like. So we talked, there's a whole long, and he breaks down all the similarities. But I feel like we addressed this in the podcast. This is a bit of a dry pie. Because, he's talking about this is such a similar show, but it does a good job of zigging where The Last of Us zagged. Said that this show feels more like the writer said, let's do a Last of Us with Daryl in France rather than taking risks on something new. So do you, I guess I talked more about that than you did. How are you feeling about the idea of this aping The Last of Us?
Like I said, this show is fundamentally silly to me. I mean, yeah, it tries to do all this highbrow stuff in the background, but the fact, like you said, that it shoehorns in action scenes every episode and just doesn't take itself as seriously as The Last of Us, just doesn't put it in the running. I don't think of them as the same thing at all, regardless of how the plot goes. The plot
is like the episode of DuckTales where they did Macbeth.
Right. I don't think of that as Shakespeare. I think of that as DuckTales. Like,
right.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not even in the same conversation to me because they're fundamentally just different.
Yeah, and I expect, like we talked about in a preview, I thought I would constantly make, because that's very recent in my mind, but like it's not ringing any bells. Because I don't even think fundamentally this show doesn't seem to be about like I don't feel any father-son vibe. I know that's where they're going for, but I'm not feeling it, so it doesn't come across as me. And to me, this is Daryl and Isabel's show. So it's like if you had to make The Last of Us, who was the woman that escorted Ellie?
Tess.
Tess.
Oh, no, the Firefly.
Well, yeah, that was so like if Marianne, was that her name?
I can't remember.
The lady that the Firefly commander in Boston. If she had survived, and it would have been about her and Joel finding ways to like see eye to eye about how they feel about the Marlene is her name, about how they feel about the post-apocalyptic life and whether they have hope and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, but like all that, like, I mean, Joel and Ellie had more speaking lines together in the first episode where they hate each other's guts and open antagonists than I think Laurent has had with Daryl for 3 episodes. So it's just different. It's not hitting me. It doesn't feel like a copy, even though superficially it feels exactly the same.
Yeah, you're right. I was looking for it. I mean, shame on me, I guess, for looking for that at the beginning before we saw the show. I should have known it's The Walking Dead. They're not going to do anything quite that level, but also, yeah, from a plot perspective, I think you're right. It's a little bit different.
It might be good.
I'm not thinking about it
because if it was more similar to the Last of Us, I think people would be being like, "Well, this is just shitty Last of Us," where they are doing kind of their own thing, and it's probably good.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. We also have only seen half of it. There might even be more. Like if Isabel dies next episode and it's just Daryl and Laurent for the next 3, that might feel very fucking Last of Us. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Bill from Aurora says, I finally got around to listening to your podcast on episode 1 of The Walking Dead. Daryl Dixon, the sheer joy and tomfoolery you guys bring to Walking Dead material makes it some of my favorite work you do. I feel like I get a riff tracks of The Walking Dead each week, and I laugh often during your episodes. When Dog makes an appearance, my life will be complete. Of course, Daryl Dixon's dog can dog paddle across the Atlantic Ocean. I believe, Bill. I believe. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, like, there'll be some kind of moment of closure. Like, is this last scene of the series, would you bet, is Daryl getting on a boat? Is it Daryl arriving at the gates of Alexandria? Is it Dog coming up and licking him in the face and Carol smacking him on the ass? Like, what's happening?
I feel like the last scene is going to be him getting back with Rick waiting for him on the shore. Right?
That would be pretty cool.
Because like he went out to find Rick. It would be kind of
him.
Poetic for Rick to have returned and him come back and be like, oh, here's Rick waiting for me. I should have just stayed home all along.
I want to be, and of course, who knows what the strike, which sounds like it got wrapped up, at least half of it did over the weekend. I wonder what the intended timing, like where you're going to do City, or the Daryl, Rick and Michonne, and then back to Daryl. Because that would make a lot of sense. But
because we know this has been greenlit already for season 2, right? So
that points more to a Daryl getting on a boat at the end of the season kind of thing.
Oh, perhaps, yeah.
Because I can't imagine they go back and spoil, like, you know, post Michonne and Rick kind of situations if they're going to go for the Alexandria happy ending.
Well, so the thing that really like makes me wonder about the plot is they've jettisoned the Rick stuff entirely. Daryl has already dealt with all that, right, in the show. Mm-hmm. Now he's just trying to get home. So in my mind, like, they can do whatever they want with the Rick and Michonne stuff, and it doesn't affect this show at all. Because Daryl could just be stuck here in France for 2 years, 5 years, whatever.
Well, so I mean, I just felt like there's some kind of intent that they were going for, right? You know, I might have gotten screwed up by the writer strike and whatnot, but anyway, we'll see. We only got 3 more. Wait, this is an 8 episode season, right? No, it's
a good
6.
Question.
I still can't believe we got to France before the halfway mark. That's kind of encouraging to me. It shows that they're like willing to burn through material that they could have made a meal of, all the little cities and stuff, but they're just trying to get right to the point. That's going to do it for our coverage this week. Thank you for listening once again, and we will be back next week with more adventures of Daryl and France. Send in feedback to walkingdead@baldmove.com. Of course, if you want to know what else we're doing, we just wrapped that foundation. We're starting Loki. Fargo's just around the corner. We got the Creator movie. I've really been desperate to see that. We're going to be talking about that this week, right? That's what we're doing. If you want to keep up with all the stuff we're doing, social media is where you want to go. We're at Bald Move everywhere, except for TikTok. We're at Baldest Move. And finally, if you'd like to support what we're doing, get more extra content for you, plus ad-free feeds and lots of other perks and benefits, go to support.baldmove.com. Thanks again for watching. Half of you for watching, all of you for listening. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm A.Ron.
And I'm Jim.
See ya.